opportunities for our teachers. The first one is, as our data was showing, that there are some significant learning gaps in math in our 5th and 6th grade students. We have partnered with Metamorphosis, and they are doing professional learning for our teachers in grades 5 and 6, just on the priority standards, how to align units of study, and tasks to priority standards to make sure that we are tackling those learning gaps. We have also hired Maria Acanelli, who has worked with us in the past around building culturally responsive units of study using the CRSE framework, which is the state framework around culturally responsive, and sustaining education framework, right? Yes. Yeah. Yep. So we're really excited about the work that she's doing around gaining a deeper understanding about students' cultures and what that can and should look like in the classroom and within units of study. So we're really excited about that work too. Dr. Mike, did you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, no, it's been really really productive work at this point. Really excited about the direction that Dr. Akinele has been bringing us, and it's really provoking quite a bit of thought and reflection around practice. So we're pretty excited about it.
And we're going to actually touch a little bit on some of the work that she's done with our schools, because we have we've channeled that in terms of the work that we're doing with our district equity team. So we're happy to see progress in that area across the district, and that is most likely going to be also the topic of discussion around our goals for next year as well. So and that's going to come at the end of our presentation. So the other piece that I think is really great work that Mike is going to put up in a second is that, you know, one of the things that happened with this pandemic is that it put us on pause for many things that I'm going to say was taking away from Dr. D'Antona and my ability to kind of look at the district as a whole through different perspectives, right? Because we were so crazy in doing school visits and MPPR and trainings in other areas that were coming from other places. We were really able to work with our, Joe, can you welcome the
I'm trying to mute him now.
You got him, thanks. We were really able to kind of hone in on specific touch points with our principals that I think has bridged the gap of the conversations that Gus has been having with us for many years, right? Around setting strategic data-based goals for your schools, which live in your CEP, which then are communicated to all, and throughout the year, alignment to the budget, and just implementation and benchmarking of these strategic goals and pivoting if necessary, right? I think the disconnect that has always happened in our system is that, you know, the end of the year is such a crazy time for buildings, and simultaneously they're writing goals. And by the time data comes in, now you have the opening of school, and that sort of takes away from a school's ability to really strategically focus on setting strong goals within your DCEP that are lived throughout the year. Would you agree with me a little bit, Gus? You could just nod. Yeah. So this year, I think we've done some very strategic work on, and I know today for some reason I keep talking about circles, like this circular understanding of here's what data says that we need. We're really trying to be attentive to learning lags. Because we didn't have state data, we looked at assessment in different ways, and Dr. D'Antona and I have gone over that with you guys. Our schools have been fabulous in creating these data-driven cultures. Our goal around supporting principals in building data systems that allow them to make strategic decisions in their leadership, that is really targeted to the needs of your schools, has been really successful this year. our 4 touch points that we have spoken to you guys about, which was around building a digital school. Our principals have been fabulous in that work. Around creating documents that are accessible to students and families have been amazing. Right now, Dr. D'Antona and I are going into PPOs because we started them in March, and we're seeing really the implementation of this work. Digitized curriculum, all of our principals have their curriculum in one space. I can't say that for other places across the city where, you know, where we need to do work. They're not perfect, right? Because remember, we were in between the priority standards and the next generation learning standards, and then the pandemic hit. But at least our schools have all their curriculum in one place where our remote teachers and our in-school teachers are working together. And what Dr. D'Antona and I are now seeing in our school visits is consistency in practice, right? Although there is a difference between what you'll see in an in-school classroom and a remote classroom, the content is the same. And that's really important, right? In one of the schools that I just visited, I went into a remote class, and then I also went into another class. I saw the same math lesson and math task being done. So we want to thank our teachers for that, because that's really part of the planning that they've done. We want to thank our school aides and our paraprofessionals that they have taken on different student-centered roles. I mean, it's just been really great work that's been happening in terms of you know, where curricula is going in our schools. Then we have you know, we worked with assessment. What assessment tools are you using, and what are they saying about your students, so we can target learning gaps during a pandemic? And then finally, feedback to teachers, right? So we're seeing all of this roll out, all of this aligned to our DCEP goals. And our principals are now seeing that connection too, because Mike and I have had this opportunity to really be targeted, which we normally don't. They are targeted also. So, and I do know that that's really been part of the work that they've been doing with their SLTs. So this, although has been a terrible year because we lived through a pandemic, it's been a good year because it helped us refocus on what's important at the school level and the district level. So, so I know that Dr. D'Antona really spoke through where we were during our benchmarking time, but I did want to show you today a document that he made around the progressions towards us meeting our goals. So Dr. D'Antona, and we'll be showing this to principals on Thursday at our principal meeting, and we're going to be asking them to kind of think about where they are in their goals in the same way. So Dr. D'Antona, if you'll kind of walk everybody through that.
Yeah, so I will flash up a couple of charts for everyone to see, particularly with ELA and math. The information that's been shared previously, once in I guess it was December or maybe even November, DLT, and then last month was really around progress against the baseline that we've administered in the beginning of the year, not necessarily a benchmark against the goals that we set in terms of progress. So what you will see in this chart is our benchmark level, which was the 18-19 school year state assessment, and then where we currently are against those benchmarks as a district. So I'm going to flash that up for you guys right now so that you can give it a look-see. Okay. Okay, so if everyone just get their eyes on this left-hand column, you'll see 18-19 state assessments. This is where what we used as kind of our baseline information from the 18-19 state exam. In 18-19, we had 21% of our students with disabilities were proficient in ELA, 40% of our Black population, 46% of our Hispanic population, and 15% of our L population. The reason why these particular subgroups are in this chart is because those are the subgroups that we identified as a district to make improvements towards. So in the goal was to improve by 5%. So you'll see at the far end, the end year target. 26% was the goal for our students with disabilities, 45% for our Black population, 51% for our Hispanic population, and 20% for our Ls. Our current percent, meaning as of March, the beginning of March, end of February, you'll see that this percentage down this column that my arrow is going up and down on is where we currently are in relationship to those goals based on children that are already at levels, well, based on the benchmark assessments from iReady, MAP, STAR. These are the current children that are on or above grade level. The difference between our benchmark and our current state, you'll see here, you'll see negative values. That means that's how much more of a percentage we need in order to achieve the goals by the end of the year. Now, you'll also see this percent at the average level section, and I think this is just really important for everyone to know. These students, now the assessments that our kids are taking right now, they're scored on a level 1 through 5, which is different from what we typically wind up getting scored on, which is a 1 through 4. So they have an average range for our kids. And this is the percentage of children that are in the average range for either the MAP or the iReady. Lexia is a little bit different because they have more of a they have a 3-point level so it is a little bit different, and they're scaled into here as well. But needless to say, if you look at the percentage of children that's on the average, we do anticipate a good percentage of our children that are in these average levels to wind up achieving that level of proficiency to be on grade level before the end of the year. So we are on track, or seemingly on track with what we anticipate in terms of end year targets. But we will have to see what happens by the time we get to the end of May when we administer these benchmark assessments again, and then we'll do this again towards the latter and towards the last part of the year. Maybe perhaps the June DLT, and we can revisit how our kids performed at the end of the school year. So does anyone have any questions about this particular chart before I move on to math? Anything not clear?
It's very clear. It's too clear.
Okay. So moving on to mathematics, similar story. We have our subgroups in here as well. The reason the all student subgroup is in here is because the goal was to reduce the percentage of our children to close that achievement gap between our subgroups, particularly our Black, Hispanic, students with disabilities, and ELs. And you'll notice it's done against the all student subgroup. So the goal is that we improve by 3% comparatively to the all subgroup level for all of our kids. Currently, these were the benchmark levels, 60 from the 18-19 state exam. In the 18-19 state exam, 65% of our all students population was proficient. 33% of our Black population, 40% of our Hispanic, 30% of our students with disabilities, and then 43.6% of our ELs. Our current levels, you will see very similar to the previous chart. These are the percentages below those levels right now. You'll see it's a much bigger difference in math than it is in ELA, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. For our all students, we're negative 17%, negative 8%, negative 16%, and so on down the line. And then you'll look at the percent average. You'll see that this range is pretty high across the average level, which is higher than what you would have seen in ELA. And part of the reason for that is there are certain standards that typically are not necessarily covered at the beginning of the year and are covered towards the latter part of the year. So some of those questions that align to those particular domains, like geometry and measurement, are not necessarily part of this assessment, which is why this may be a little bit adjusted. So we'll get a much better viewpoint of that by the end of the year. And having said that, we do look like and anticipate that a significant percentage of our children that are at the average level will wind up performing on grade level before the end of the school year. So, we do feel like we will be in line with meeting these expectations by the end of the year. Any questions about the math one?
So one of the things that I just want to highlight for us as we're thinking about framing our goals for next year is that the data in both math and ELA shows us that our learning gaps that are most significant are amongst our Hispanic population, as we have spoken about in the past, which is around between 26 and 29%. It goes back and, over the years, but it is a significant amount of students in our district. So more likely than not, you will see, and one of the things that Mike and I have talked about, instead of being less targeted and really kind of throwing the kitchen sink at all of our subgroups, we are going to really start strategically focusing on exactly what our data says, but also looking at, and Mike, if you can go back to ELA, I mean, before you do that though, go back down one more time. Not just saying our Hispanic subgroups, which has the most significant learning gaps, but also looking at our students in math, our students with disabilities, right, and our Black students, to see that although our Hispanic students have huge deficits right now in this current data, they're still performing better in math than our Black and students with disability subgroups. So we have to start really having actually, no, I'm sorry, than our students with disability subgroups. So we have to start having conversations that are really strategic around what we're targeting and why, and what that looks like in terms of goals and targets at the school level. Okay, now go back to ELA. One of the things that I have spoken about very often at a lot of different meetings when we're looking at data is, I think it's important for all of us to know data, so we're not just randomly answering to concerns that come to the district, right? My biggest thing that I've really been advocating for, and something that I think we are going to have to look at very closely next year, is, although we're working for all students, I really want to look at some of the learning lags of our English language learners. And make sure that our schools are really targeting and supporting them in addressing the learning lags that have happened, especially with our English language learners that were remote, right? So our benchmark target has been, is at 17%. And I would like to see our benchmark and end of year target being higher than that, right? Same thing in terms of ELA with our students with disabilities. So just something for you, and Dr. D'Antona and I will send this to you following this meeting, so you can have these target sheets for you to look at them. But we want you to use these as part of the conversations that we engage in as we're framing our goals, because we can't focus on everything and do everything, right? Because then we wind up doing a whole bunch of like more global and less targeted. So I think as a DLT, we should really start making decisions about what key subgroups we want to move and why, and really reinforcing that at the school level. Meaning, if we're saying as a DLT that our focus is going to be on our Hispanic subgroups in ELA, and a school has learning gaps in ELA in their Hispanic subgroup, then their CEP goal needs to reflect that. And the work that they're doing, and the work that Dr. D'Antona and I are going to look at during our PPOs, is to see that they're engaging in work that will move them along to meet the needs of this specific subgroup. We'll also be looking at the entire school. That's not, we're not going to go in there and say like your focus is on Hispanic, your Hispanic students, and so we want to see that. We're going to be looking at the work happening across the entire school, but we're going to ask next year that our schools be a little bit more targeted, aligned to the subgroup work and what that's saying. Does that make sense? Okay, so for today, this is the framing that we're going to engage in with you guys around thinking about what our goals would look like. But by next month, certainly, we want to be able to have at least our targeted subgroups, so I can engage with our principals and our SLTs, so they start talking about that in the months of May and June. So they're more strategic as well. So any feedback from you guys around that? I see, Lamar, you just showed your face. Did you want to say something? No. Okay. Any questions?
No, but I have a comment, Super Danielle. And you know, this is a very good overview. Correct me if I'm wrong, superintendents and high school folks, but it's my understanding that state testing in ELA and math will take place. Although students cannot be required to come in just to take the test, there will be some testing that will take place. And at the high school level, there will be some of the regions will be given in June. Is that all accurate, folks? With the same proviso that not students can't be compelled to come in and take the regions, but the ones that are there will take Regents exams. So my thought is that going into the end of the summer and early next academic year, we'll have sort of a partial data set based on those results when they come out. And that information can be compared to some degree to the excellent, in-house results that you've been, doing all along with your progress monitoring in the district and the school in terms of the data. Have I got it right, superintendents?
Yes, yes. But all the more reason, Gus, that we're thinking about why we're glad that we have created these systems as a district around assessment benchmarks and assessment data and pre-assessments, because we don't know how many students will be coming in to take these tests, right? In ELA and math. We will absolutely use them for the students that we have this data and this information for in our targeted groups, where our principals are having data chats with teachers. So if I, let's say, have 10 kids in my class that have taken the ELA, principals will be using that ELA data in data chats with their teachers. But it will be very hard for us to get a district perspective around our growth based on ELA exams, and schools as well, depending upon how many students have taken it.
So because of the variability of all the different variables that are at play, it will make deciphering that a little bit difficult. But what we would be able to do is look at our current benchmarks that we're administering and take a look to see how did those children fare that took our in-house benchmarks comparatively to what those questions were that they had to complete on the state exam, to see if there is any relationship or correlation between those two things. Did our benchmarks align to how kids performed on this upcoming one day? Although it's obviously a different assessment too, and that we have to keep in mind as well. It's not the same as what kids had to engage in the past, where they had to do multiple parts over multiple days. So there's going to be some variability, but we should be able to at least get some sense of how kids performed on our own benchmarks that our schools took and that state exam, whatever it's going to look like for them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's my thought as well, Mike. So, that's what we're dealing with, looking, towards the immediate future in terms of both school goals and district goals. And when my turn comes on the agenda, I'll talk a little bit about, the school CEPs and going forward what they're expected to look like.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so any other questions or comments? So just so the team knows, we will be engaging in a similar information session with our principals on Thursday, and so with the hope that for those schools that want assistance from Dr. Mike, that he can work with them to create these documents for their entire staff and their SLT as well, and especially to engage in conversations around goal setting between now and the end of the year, which I do think will be a very helpful tool to help them with this work. Okay, So, Dr. Mike, I'm going to turn over our next item of the agenda, which is we wanted to update all of you around the work that we're doing with our equity team currently. And I think from our team, Lamar, are you the only one that's on the team? Yes, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Currently, we are working to reframe our mission and vision through an equity lens. And we are really at the nascent phases of that, like the really beginning phases of it. But we wanted to update the DLT just because as we work through this, this is going to impact the work that goes through our DLT and within our DCEP. So Dr. D'Antona, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. So just to give a quick little recap, I know you guys have heard this before, but we do have a team. It's made up of principals, teachers, students, parents, district office staff, members of from the Office of Equity team, assistant principals, which is not listed there, it should be. We've been partnering with the Office of Equity and Access for the last 2 years. Initial focus of the work was to analyze data trends across disciplines, special ed, access to SP programs. As a result of that, from last year, we started our focus on special education. This school year, we've been working on unpacking definitions of equity so that we can ensure we were all working from a similar set of language. And the goal was to really revisit our current mission and vision to ensure alignment and promote a shared set of beliefs as a community. So we've shared these definitions with you guys before in the past as well, but just so you have an idea, we gave out a set of 5 different definitions from leaders in this field, searching for different language stems that resonated with us or we thought were purposeful for our work. As a result of that, these are some of the terms, some of the language that was surfaced from the analysis of those definitions. If you want to just take a quick minute to give it a look-see. But this is some of the language that was pulled that we thought was relevant for our decisions around our equity definitions and connections to our mission and vision. So from these terms, we continue to work as a team to revisit our District 25 vision, strong roots, strong schools, growing together for our children's future, and our district mission statement, which at the beginning of the year, we actually did make a revision, which was at this lower part of the document where we must also ensure that we foster our beliefs in equity. That was a revision that was made at the beginning of the school year, but we're still looking to make some of those adjustments at this point moving forward. And then we also have our district values. These are things that we believe in for our schools to be really successful, that they need to have embedded in their work and embedded as part of our district work. And one of the most important ones is that we look at the things that we do through a lens of collective learning. That we all need to be working towards
Ma, leave the milk. I'll take care of everything.
I'm not sure who just hopped on. Someone just hopped on. And the utilization of that transparent data system, the engagement of cycles of inquiry, strategic planning and professional learning, collaboration with families, creating opportunities for that support empowerment, critical thinking, problem solving. So there are a number of things here that we do value as a district. Now we're looking at all of these things, our vision, our mission, and our values, to see where do we have that language of equity embedded in it, and do we? If we do, where are we highlighting it? What does it mean for our schools? If we don't, what adjustments do we need to have and make in order to make sure that that's reflected in those 3 areas? So we're in the process of that now. Our team has looked at each of these things, and we have a meeting that's actually coming up in the near future to revisit some of the language that we surfaced, to make some adjustments to these district values, vision, and mission statements, so that we're all on the same page as a district equity team, and then certainly as a district leadership team, then at school leadership teams, and then in our schools in general, so that we're all on the same page with what we value as a community. And where that brought us, and what I'm going to ask you guys to do, for this video reflection, it's something that we shared during our district equity team, and what was intended to be just a couple of minutes turned out to be a lengthy conversation just around what resonated, and was really quite powerful. So as you're listening in on the video, take a moment to independently reflect and engage, and we're going to engage in a brief conversation as a collective group. Identify 1 to 2 things that resonated with you, 1 to 2 things that made you think or made you wonder from this video that we're going to review right now as a collective group.
Before we can talk about equity versus equality, I want to first define diversity. At Inclusive Communities, we like to say diversity in its simplest definition means differences. We all have differences, from our glasses to our weight to how much money we have. That is diversity, and no matter how much people say it's hard to find diversity, that's not true. Diversity exists. It's about taking the time to acknowledge its existence and work to ensure action is taken to embrace these differences, not alienate them. Equality is often equated to fairness and sameness, and is based in the misconception that we all have the same needs and the same solution will work for everyone. Equity is based in access and opportunity, with the understanding that we each start with different advantages and disadvantages, and thus have different needs to attain access and opportunity. To understand equity, we have to compare it to equality. Now, I love this equity versus equality graphic, as it's the best explanation of the difference between the two. On the equality side, you see that we've got 3 individuals, our tall guy, our short girl, and our friend in the wheelchair. And you see that they're all trying to watch this baseball game, but there's this fence. With equality, they've each been given a box to use to be able to see the game. But obviously that's not working, because our tall friend is now super tall and sees very clearly over the fence, while our short girl can just barely see, and she's still kind of on her tiptoes and struggling to see the game, while the person in the wheelchair can't see it all and they can't even get on the box. On the equity side of this picture, you can see that now we've given each individual exactly what they need to be able to see the game. The person in the wheelchair has a ramp, so they can clearly get to the top and see the full game. The shorter girl has 2 boxes, which is what she needed to comfortably be able to see, and the tall person has no boxes at all because they didn't need the extra assistance in the first place. Equity is a process, which means it is continuous. We can't gain equity by changing just one thing. For example, the equity side of this photo shows our friend in the wheelchair has gained equity at this fence, but the work is not done. True progressive equity is about how can we ensure that he has equitable opportunities at all of the hypothetical and real fences in his life. Equity requires power, resources, and social responsibility to work hand in hand to change the structures and provide opportunities to those who were institutionally left out, marginalized, or oppressed. Equity is hard, but it's essential for us to make change in the lives of those who have been historically depicted as less than. From individuals with disabilities like physical, developmental, and mental, to people living in poverty without access to food or education or healthcare. It's important for us to understand that there is a long history of discrimination, which has created the present day inequities, which don't allow these individuals the same access to opportunity than those who don't have those differences. One of the greatest gifts that we give to students that we work with is the opportunity to share their story and to find value in their voice. And this increases awareness and a sense of empowerment. Everyone has their own stuff. Everyone is going through something that challenges their emotional and physical capacity to be great, but there is power in connection. So now here's your challenge. Be brave and seek out those opportunities to have authentic conversations with those that are different than you. Find out what makes them unique and what brings them joy. Then you do the same. Share your story because you have value as well. Now you've built community. And with community, we have power. We is always stronger than me.
So if everyone could just take a minute to reflect on the video, and then we're going to do a quick round. Those of you who have those 1 to 2 things to resonate with you, we'll go around and kind of give everyone an opportunity to share what their thinking is, and then we will move on. But just take that moment to reflect, and then we'll come back together in about 30 seconds. Okay. Any thoughts? Anything that resonated with you from the video? Things that made you think or wonder? Feel free to come off mute or add to the chat.
I guess this is Rashmi. So I think that's what Danielle and you are trying to do. It's focus based on individual schools' need, right? If the school has a majority of Spanish population, and if they're lagging, then you focus on that. If the school has a most of East Asian population, you focus on that and their needs to bridge the gap. I think that's what I got from the video, that we are already doing that equity versus equality. We're already understanding how to bridge the gap and how to make all see over the fence.
Thank you, Rashmi. Anyone want to say more?
I think it's important when we discuss equity as it relates to schools or society in general, is that people have to trust and embrace the concept of what equity is and why it's important. And knowing that, like it's explained in the video, knowing that when we talk about equity, understand that means that you may get less, but they understand the bigger picture of that. Like human nature says, oh, I want, if he got, if Mike has, then how come I don't have? Well, no, we have to understand what equity looks like and why I may not have, right? And what the bigger picture is. And that's for lack of a better phrase, it's a hard sell, right? But when you think about where you are as a whole, if everyone sees that window and if everyone sees where the gaps are, where the lags are, then you could probably get people to understand why equity is important, So I think that's the key, is getting everybody, I say everybody in our district, everybody in the general sense, to understand where we stand and why it's important that one may get more than the next, one may get less than the next. It's not a personal thing. This is what we have to do to go forward.
And Lamar, Lamar, I always think about, sometimes we kind of talk about the squeakiest wheels, and distract us from equity, and so how do we form community, which is what that video also spoke about. Like, you're right, like in order to really tackle equity, you have to really look at the needs of everyone and make sure that everyone still gets what they need. But if I have what I need, I may not need what a focus area is. That does not mean that somebody should say, well, they should get it too, right? So I think, what I'm really proud of this year is that we've engaged in this conversation and how well the District 25 community is embracing it, right? Like, there's been some arguments, there's been some different perspectives, especially in the work that we're doing with Maria Akinelli, where she's really asking us to look at students and our curriculum in a different way. But there's this understanding of part of your conversation, right? And so that's why we want to be grounded in a vision, because a vision is what allows you to kind of go back to your work when other things happen, right? So I agree with you. I think that we are just really, we've had really good conversations as an equity team, and I think our schools have, but we want to make sure that that continues and lands in decisions that are made, right? So as Rashmi said, like in the decisions that we make as a DLT and the decision that we make at schools make as SLTs too, should be through this understanding of equity. Like, yes, if we have a 30% lag in a certain subgroup, we're going to need to focus on that. That doesn't mean that other people aren't going to get what they want and they need, but we're going to have to give more attention right now to this. And what does that look like in terms of a school's resources? And that I don't think we've really been able to do until, we started these discussions.
And I think the word I was looking for that I kind of struggled, but you said it was community. So
Yeah.
if the district has that sense of community, and that it's there, it's evident, and then to really understand what equity means from one school to the next within the same 6-mile radius, like you'd have to have the sense of community to understand what's going on and why certain elements are important. So that's what I took from that. Just the ability to embrace the community aspect and to embrace how important equity is across the board.
Right, you said it so right, because I sit in Flushing area. So PS24, for example, is heavily populated with East Asians, and 107 just across, just couple, maybe 3 miles or 4 miles down from the PS24 is majority of Hispanic. So just the two schools in Flushing itself have two different subgroups that probably the individual schools will focus on their individual subgroups. So yeah, definitely.
Anyone say more? So for me, one of that last part around connections and being able to value one another and in that context of community, I think is so important. And I think that's been a lot of what Dr. Akinyele has been working on with our cohort of teachers is, in sometimes just through some general activities, how do we really get to know the kids in our community, and how do we make sure that who they are is valued? And I think for me, that whole connection piece that was shared towards the latter part of that video is certainly super important for me anyway. And I know for our schools, that's kind of what resonated with me. And what was interesting, as part of our student chats, it came up during our student chats, and how do we make sure that we get to know one another pretty well? And to me, that's what resonated for me.
The one thing that I want to talk about is, last I'm going to kind of reference this later, but we created an opportunity last Friday at our assistant principal meeting just around opening up space for these discussions. And I think that's important to build community, to build trust, to allow people to have these strong discussions about equity and what that means in education and what that means in our community, right? So once again, just talking to you guys about thinking towards our goals for DCEP for next year, just in terms of family and community engagement, what these things should and can look like, grounded in this idea of equity and how we as a community want to create space to allow for this and build capacity across our district and our district schools. So, okay, any other comments? All right, Dr. D'Antona, I think we've hit everything on our agenda, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing that did come from it, and these are just some terms from our last equity meeting that were surfaced that we're going to continue to reflect on in terms of the district vision, mission, and goals. And these are some of them: empowerment, inclusion, self-awareness, justice, access, creating space, identity, and belonging were terms that kind of came up during our last meeting that we're going to continue to reflect on and see where those are present or not inside of our vision, mission, and value statements. And I encourage everyone here also to take a look at those statements that we've created thus far, and where do you also see perhaps some of that opportunity for that language to be embedded as well.
Yep. So currently we're in a space with our equity team where we're building the language, and the decision to be made about having an embedded mission and vision within our current mission and vision, or an aligned side-by-side equity vision. So once we kind of come up with that, and we want us to think about the equity team as a subcommittee to the DLT, right? Where the work that we're doing is going to be grounded in decisions that we make around the DLT that really fosters and focuses on the mission, vision, and goals for our district every year. So this will be a to be continued kind of piece for all of you guys, but once again, something for you to think about as Dr. D'Antona and I frame our goals for next year. Okay, so thank you, Dr. D'Antona. And Gus, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you right now.
Got it.
Okay. Mike, do you want to share the documents, or should I try to share my documents by sharing my screen?
Just tell me which one you want up there, Gus.
Okay. I guess the first one would be the new DCEP sections. So I'm going to talk first about the finalization of our this current year's DCEP. As you all know, you've worked very hard on it. It's a document that you can be proud of. It's been finalized, and I put it into the central database for public posting with the permission of the district. Now, the question is, where will it be posted? My understanding at the moment is that there's a public facing in the in iPlan. So when you don't need a login. When you go to iPlan, it's my understanding that they're going to post them there. There's also some discussion about creating links to district websites. But so in the short term, they'll be posted in this way. Long term, they'll be posted the way they have been in the past by going to your iPlan site, looking for district documents, clicking on that, and finding it. But it is done, and you're the only district that I know of that did its own survey of 100.11. And again, that's I commend you for it. It's reflected in the document in a little intro at the beginning, and then the old 100.11 plan is there just as a reference point. So the only thing that's missing now, and I resolved that on Friday, is I need signatures from the DLT core members for the DCEP. We're using DocuSign for that. There have been some technology problems with DocuSign, some of which were beyond my control, and some had to do with my using it. I resolved them on Friday, and it's on my agenda to send you out an email today, by close of business today, probably in the late afternoon or early evening. You'll be getting an email from me up to sign off on the DCEP. Now, you've done it already, so you know how to do it. Basically, you click on the little box, and that electronically signs it, and you don't have to pick your constituency on this one. It's already pre-plugged in terms of the section that you're signing next to your name. So that is the old DCP business. On the new one, going to iPlan eventually, but it's right now it is a Word document like it was this year, but it is a full DCP. Mike, can you get it on up there, or should I try?
You're talking about the template, right, Gus?
Yeah, the new, not the whole DCP. You all have been sent the new DCP template. I'm not going to take up so much time to go over it, but what I pulled out from the guidelines is a summary of the new sections. The title of it is New DCP Sections. Do you see it, Mike?
So I have three things in the attachment from what I'm assuming is from you. I have the DCEP template, the CEP timeline,
And new DCP sections, it's called. I've sent it to everybody, so everybody should have it. Should I try putting it up?
Hold on one second, Gus.
The file starts with new.
Okay, I'm looking.
Isn't technology wonderful, folks?
Okay,
Michael, I just sent it to you.
I got it.
That's the one. Okay, great. Blow it up a little bit. What I did was I pulled this out of the guidelines because I thought it was a useful way for everybody to see what's really new. It even gives you the page numbers on the DCP. So the DLT must identify one goal for K to 8 and one goal for high schools for each AOC. And required AOCs are English language arts, math, high school. And what's new here is there are more goals for the high schools. Supportive environment for high schools and for K to 8. Graduation rate is high school only. College and career civic residence is high schools only. And you could add anything additional that you feel is appropriate. For example, if you want to have something, a separate piece for chronic absenteeism, you could add a goal on that. So the structure is, there's nothing mysterious here. You've seen this all before, but there's more of them in some cases. After analyzing your data, when we do our needs assessment, like we've seen in the past, and by the way, all of this is very similar and aligned to what the schools are doing. So now there's a needs section. Remember, the update year last year didn't have a needs section. So there'll be an overview section like we have in the past. And between myself and the district, we'll have to update that overview with data and information. But there'll also be a root cause analysis and a needs section. And that really relates to the earlier discussion about data that we were having. So what we'll have to put in there going forward, we can start working on it now, but come September especially, is to look at what data we have and look for the learning gaps and have a hypothesis to explain why these needs exist and why we're getting these outcomes and what we're going to do about them. And that's on page 11. There's a new section, which is not really brand new. You've seen it before, folks. Multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS, and we're bringing back the students in temporary housing section. There'll be a section for Title I, again, as in the past. So here you'll emphasize the match between what we used to call AIS and these multiple tiered systems of support for social, emotional, and academic support. So that's a new section that wasn't there before, although we have had it in the past. And we've also had STH, students in temporary housing. So that will be back in. So those are, and it gives you the page numbers there. That is the difference in terms of structure, along with the overview section that's coming back as well. So what I'd like you to do is, if you get a chance, please take a look at the document. It's been emailed to you in its entirety, and we can begin thinking about the various sections, and as always, by the June, we hopefully will have some preliminary goals and some data analysis that we can think about, and then look at our action plans, etc., in terms of coming back in September. And I'm very confident the district is very, very well organized in putting structures into place. So I'm sure that we'll be in great shape in June and in September going forward, looking towards the new DCEP for next year. So that's the overview basically on the DCEP, the new one, without going forward. It is a full DCEP. It's not an update like it was last year. And given the data challenges that we have because of the pandemic, we will work on that. And I've been told in my discussions with Central that the expectation is that district goals will not change dramatically, because we'll only have partial information in terms of data. So, some of the goals from last year will carry over, citywide. But that's a district discussion, and every district is a different family. So we'll discuss that going forward. The next two meetings, I don't know whether you want to meet over the summer. Some districts do, some districts don't. But it can be carried over to the discussion for the summer as well. Any questions on the new DCEP going forward? Comments? Okay, then look for my DocuSign email, on the old DCEP, please, folks. And I'm sorry it took me so long to get it out, but technology has its own set of challenges. Of course, we will all always update our parent engagement plan. It's been approved for 2 years, but it doesn't mean we don't look at it in between. We always look at it. And the 100.11 plan, you've done your own survey information. Let's hope that FACE will get out a regular SLT survey next year, and we can, formalize the update the way we have in the past. So that's the other two pieces that will normally be there. Now, on the monthly meetings for parent and family engagement, Esther is probably on. Is Esther there?
No, I don't think so. She's
okay.
not on yet.
The folks who are family engagement and parent support individuals at the school level and at the district level.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I'm here.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Then you participated in the monthly meeting, didn't you?
Which one?
Oh, we just held one. When was the last week? That Andrea Ferguson put together.
Oh, yeah, I was there. Yes.
Yes. So that's going to be done now, I'm told, on an ongoing basis, both in terms of Title I and parent involvement and engagement in general. It's a collaboration between the central office of improvement and FACE. And I thought the meeting went very well. Esther, any comments? How did you think it went?
I think it went smooth and very informative. I just think it would have, it was good.
So, folks, that's a new structure going forward. I've been asked to participate as a resource for my districts. So I expect to, participate in each one. So now on an ongoing basis, there'll be training and a forum to discuss needs in terms of family and parent engagement citywide, and both at the school level and the district level. So that is a new structure that's in place, and I think it's very welcome. If there are any issues or questions that bubble up from the school level, obviously the district support will make them known during that meeting, or if you let me know about them ahead of time, I can have them added, to whatever agenda, assuming they're of interest to others citywide, that Andrea Ferguson and FACE are putting together. So that's a new structure going forward, and I think it's a very positive sign and will be very informative both at the school level and at the district level. Now, any questions on that, folks? Okay, then let me move on to what will undoubtedly be the biggest thing in my life between now and in June, the CEP. Like the DCP, which I just discussed, the CEP is a full CEP this year. First, the old CEPs. They have all been posted. You should be able to find them on the public site for an iPlan. If a school cannot find its CEP, the one that was just approved and completed, please let me know and I'll find out why. But they're all publicly available now. That's my understanding. They're retooling iPlan, and they will be available on the regular site shortly. I've been dealing with some inquiries from schools already who went looking for them, and were looking also for last year's and weren't able to find them. But the new ones now, which is a full CEP template, is on iPlan for every school. April 6th was the release date. Everybody's CEP is customized. What does that mean? There is no guesswork, ladies and gentlemen, as to what AOC each school has to do. There are tiles, those boxes, so every school has its required tiles. If the district decides that it has a district initiative and would like everybody to do an additional goal, there's an option tile. So, that allows the flexibility for schools to add things and for the district to add things. But all of those pieces are there. The new Title I information, STH information, just like with the DCP, is there as well. The overview section for the school is back. They are going to, and the information page, they are going to pre-populate it, they tell me, and schools will have to check for accuracy. So the timeline for the CEP hasn't changed. I'm not going to put it up. I believe we sent it to you, as I always do. And it by June 30th, all schools are supposed to finalize their preliminary goals and align them to the budget, just like they do every year. And then the principal is supposed to attest to that alignment. And then by July 30th, the superintendent's office is supposed to certify that alignment for every school. Just like every year, ladies and gentlemen, nothing's changed on that. I understand that people will have questions and maybe some technology or provisioning issues on SLT members. So that's why I say it's going to be my life between now and the end of June and beyond. As I've told you repeatedly, I'm available to all schools 24/7, and they take me up on it. They email me about both technical questions and other kinds of questions in terms of working on their plans. When it's a content issue, I always defer to the district. All content issues have to do with superintendent, and your discussion with each principal in terms of their instructional gaps and goals and so on. There's a root cause analysis section, just like the section in the DCEP. And the data issue, which we just discussed, will be the same for schools as well. So the question that I'm anticipating will be asked is, well, what about those what about resources and training? So Mike, there's a second piece that I put up there that has all those links for CEP resources. So there's a document that you have and the schools have, and there it is. Yep. It gives you links to the timeline, root cause analysis. You see that there, and other pieces having to do with resources for schools working on and SLTs working on their CEP. Now, I asked the question of Central when we had a meeting about the CEPs, and I said, well, what kind of training are you going to roll out for my people? They told me that they're going to do a webinar on the new CEP and its pieces and resources that schools could access. That seems to be the approach for lots of things, folks. So this webinar I haven't seen yet, but it is, I'm told it's going to come out shortly. It'll be recorded. It'll be announced in Principals Weekly. And then, just like we did before with SLT training, if schools feel that they need real-time, one-on-one or group support, we can have office hours and invite schools that need extra help in collaboration with the district. And of course, I'll be there as well to do what I can to assist schools in answering any questions. That's in addition to the regular ongoing support that I'll be doing normally, as well as your excellent district resources. Everyone at the DO is constantly helping me, and I'm helping them in supporting the schools with CEP questions. So remember the timeline. I'm proud of the fact that we are always either number one or close to number one in completing everything. And I fully expect that by the end of June, we will be number one or close to number one in certifying all of our CEPs in terms of their alignment. I'm confident of that, and I tell our executive superintendent that's our record for a long period of time, and it's my goal to help all of my districts maintain it. And as I said, you're either number one or number two in getting everything done.
Number one, Gus. We're
number one. Okay. So we will take care of all of these matters with the schools. Are there any questions? Any questions or any suggestions on how to go about supporting the schools and getting this done? I guess not. It's not. There are new pieces, but the whole procedure should be familiar to our schools by now. The only challenges we're going to have, and I didn't mention it, is both at the district level and at the school level, is the progress monitoring piece as well. We have to be, thoughtful in terms of how we're going to monitor progress. All of our schools, with one exception, at the high school level, are in good standing. So their progress monitoring will be the mid-year of February and the end. They won't have quarterly, I don't believe. I have to look at the template. I may be wrong, but we'll look at the template together. But I believe they don't have to do the monitoring that schools in improvement status do. But whatever the monitoring is, both at the district level and at the school level, we have to think and be thoughtful beyond the state assessments, which hopefully next year will be normalized, on how we're doing that. And of course, the hypothesis and the root cause analysis, etc. I've been told by the state that they're not coming out with any new accountability lists due to the testing situation and the pandemic for this year. So going into next year, we will all be, I believe, in good standing, with the exception of one school in District 25. And I hope next academic year they'll get a read on the data for that one school, and you can join your neighboring District 26 in being a district in good standing as well. That's my hope and my expectation. And my goal is to have all of Queens North be in good standing. But, we'll see how it all plays out next year. Any questions? Okay, and please, DLT members, if anything comes to your attention, both on the family engagement side, the Title I side, and CEPs, please let the district office know. They'll get a hold of me, and we will find out how we can be a help in resolving any issue or answering any question. Thank you for listening to me, folks.
Thank you, Gus. Any questions? No questions for Gus? Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to high schools, Dr. Werner and Bill. I don't know who's presenting.
Bill, I'm echoing, I apologize. I can show, I can display, and we can maybe share the information. Okay. All right, so this isn't it. Hold on. My apologies. I'm trying to get the right one up here. Okay, I think I did it. Okay, is that visible to everybody? All right. Sorry, let me just get. All right. I'm between this Zoom and Google, I'm having like transition issues. Okay, so Bill and I will give Superintendent Lindsay's updates. So I'll begin. Queens North High School hosted a My Brother and My Sister's Keeper kickoff on February 26th and a session for new and emerging advisors on March 4th. There are subsequent sessions from now until the end of the month on April 30th for advisors for MBK and MSK students. Queens North High School District team members will be working collaboratively to create a platform to support student voice across the district, and the details of this new initiative are forthcoming. Superintendent Lindsay hosted her second parent office hours on April 8th. There's also a principal mindfulness wellness series that started on February 9th to provide principals with strategies and tools to handle stress. And I had gone to a couple of them and they are quite good. And I think they're doing a lot to really attune principals to mindfulness and de-stressing strategies. High school reopening, principals were surveyed on their capacity to have 5 days of in-person instruction, and high school students, of course, came back on the 22nd, on March 22nd. Bill, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Which bullet did you leave off at?
High school reopening, you can see it, yes? I can continue if.
I see it. So the focus group for high
It's
school.
yeah, teacher and principal evaluation, just one above that.
Oh, okay. So teacher and principal evaluation guidance is being rolled out for the remainder of the school year. Time period to conduct the evaluations are March 9th to June 11th. There's also a focus group for high school summer session. So I know that most people probably already heard that there's going to be some type of integration with CBOs. So that's like an ongoing thing that's happening. Probably some type of an extended summer school. There's a joint public hearing. This is for, this doesn't actually, this should have been deleted. District. Regents exams are going to be June 17th to the 25th. These are the only regents that will be offered in high school, which is living environment, earth science, algebra 1, and English. And they will take place in school buildings. The caveat here is that there's not a remote option for students, but students will not be penalized if they do not sit for the exam. For graduation ceremonies, there's going to be virtual graduation ceremonies. There could be possible outdoor graduations moving up, but they have to be permissible by the New York City low-risk outdoor entertainment guidelines. There's also the COVID health policy that schools have to adhere to. So, the principals really have to do their due diligence to ensure that they have any paperwork that needs deadline of April 3rd, because they're permits that they have to apply for just the logistics of having ceremony. And then lastly, the advanced placement exam. I put a link in the actual dates and the time, and for anyone that wants to review that information, that's basically. We have no other updates at this time. Dr. Warner, do you have anything specific for your school or for any of the other high school? I think we can move on.
Bill, I have two items, high school items to add.
Okay.
Yeah, as you know, we've been able to establish a very good collaboration between myself and Superintendent Lindsay's team. With regard to Flushing High School, we just collaborated in supporting the Principal Ignazio Accardi of Flushing High School on a SIG grant, SIG 6 monitoring visit from the State Education Department. It went very well. Principal Accardi gave a wonderful presentation on how the grant funds were used, and there's no follow-up that I'm aware of that the state requires. They continue to be in TSI status. We completed visit 2. Visit 3, if I remember correctly, Bill, is in May. I don't remember the exact date. If you have it handy, you can mention it, but it is in May. The purpose of that visit is to support the school in terms of putting together its CEP. Because they are a TSI school, their CEP is a bit more elaborate than schools in good standing. So they have additional sections that they need to fill out. And I'll be supporting them along with Bill Doyle and the district team. They've been wonderful in terms of working with the school on an ongoing basis. We all have the same motivation and purpose, is to get them in good standing so they won't be a TSI school anymore. So we'll be working with them to help them make their CP as robust and as full as possible going forward towards the end of the academic year. Anything you want to add, Bill?
No, you basically captured a lot of that. The third visit for the TSI for Flushing is going to be May 18th. And that will include class visits because, you know, Superintendent Lindsay wants to continue even in the remote environment to, you know, push into those classes and see what's going on. And yeah, Ignacio is doing a really fantastic job with supporting the school under the circumstances. But we're always trying to make improvements.
And Bill, I'm sorry, when you asked me if I wanted to share, I was muted and I was talking and didn't realize it. So
I understand.
we, so yeah, we're administering the SAT tomorrow. Other schools are doing it next week. The College Board gave us the option of having, of course, different tests and being flexible with that. AP exams are being taken at home. They are different. So SAT are on location. AP exams are home, and of course, there's the Regents reduction of the number of examinations, and there are still waivers in place. So there's no penalty for students not sitting for the exam, and they'll be given waivers if they do not sit for the exam. Even if they do sit, they're still entitled to the waiver.
Okay, thank you, guys. Bill, you'll let us know if Mr. Ignacio can present next month or the month after that. I think that would be.
Yeah, I just need to know like what time, how much time would he have, things of that nature.
So I mean, it's
specifically what you want.
It's always at 9 o'clock, and it is I would say like no more than 20 minutes.
All right.
And to really just talk about state accountability data, because that's and where he was, what he's working towards. I think when he first came, he had just become principal, and so he was talking about, you know, how he was assessing the school and what he was thinking about doing. And so now, next phase, since he's been there a while, like where has the school gone, and you know, where does he think he will continue to land in state accountability data?
Got it. Not a problem. I'll talk to him, and once I get an okay, I'll let you know.
All right, perfect. You guys have anything else to present?
Not on my end.
No.
Okay, great. So next is new business. I have a couple of announcements that I just want to make in terms of new business, and then I want to call on constituent groups to kind of present if there's any new business on their end. So the first is during our May CEC meeting, which is, and let me get the exact date. I believe right now it is, Rashmi, for scheduled for the 12th, right? Didn't you change it from the 5th to the 12th?
Yeah, I believe so, Danielle.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yep, we will be doing our district-wide celebration for all teachers, administrators who have received tenure during the past year. Thank you, Lamar, for creating space and bringing up all of us together to do that. So we're really excited. Over the next few weeks, teachers and administrators will be receiving invitations to come to the CEC meeting, where we'll be celebrating them, and their names will be called, and they will receive virtual certificates. So we're excited about that.
Good question. Good question. I mean, we're all here, so I'll ask anyway now. How do the virtual certificates work? Because I was talking to the Queen's office about, you know, doing our part to contribute to that. And they're asking that question too. And I said, you know what? I don't know how the virtual certificates will work. That's a good question.
So there's a few things that you can do. I mean, one of the things that we did, and that's up to you guys, and I guess Lamar, working with your chapter leaders, is maybe you can send them to the principals, and the principals could print them. I don't know how many schools or the principals can kind of forward them to the teachers. It depends upon what you guys decide, how many teachers per school, right? Or if chapter leaders want to be in control of getting fancy paper, it's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
But Louis and I are working on an exact number per school, which we'll be able to provide to you, and then you can decide what you wanted to do. But
Okay.
A lot of times when we're doing any kind of celebratory work, we send it to the principals and ask the principals to give it to the teachers. As long as it's not, I mean, I don't think our schools have 20, you know, per school. It's usually about 5 or 6 per school. So but once we get those numbers, we'll let you know.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
No problem.
So we're excited about that. And then, secondly, I wanted to announce that currently as a district, we're in the process of planning a parent town hall that is going to focus on our students and our school communities and our work that we are doing against hate, specifically recognizing most recently the attacks against our Asian community, but overall we're going to be referencing all of our communities and what's happening to them because of actions that are grounded in hate. So we're working with our schools. They're going to be student-led. Right now we have students writing statements, but very similar to what I spoke about earlier, just around creating space for our communities to hear from students, to be able to voice, and parent leaders to be able to voice their feelings and emotions. During this work, there's a lot of concerns around our families and how they feel at this time. Most recently, there was a discussion about many of our Asian families. They have older grandparents who are in charge of walking children to and from school. And because of the fear for the elderly, they're keeping their children remote. So we want to create a community and a space where we can work with other local organizations, local police precincts to ensure that our children feel safe going to and from school. So this is just really the start of this work, but we're really happy to engage in it together as a community and stand against hate, all kinds of hate that we have seen specifically across this year. So to be continued around that date, and of course the DLT will receive an invitation, and that we hope that you will attend as well. Any questions? Okay. As Matt also suggested, Will also suggested, we are awaiting further guidance around what summer school will look like. Right now, we are planning for the opening of as many buildings as possible. Lewis has worked strategically with Central around our schools that have full air conditioning. Remember, we were part of the Cool Schools initiative, but they didn't get to do all of our schools because the pandemic hit. I know that they are going to continue to work in that direction, but right now we're looking to keep all of our schools, as many as possible, open for our Summer Rise program, but more details will be coming in the next few weeks, and we're happy to announce that to you once we really know fully what Summer Rise will look like. Okay, so I want to call on constituent groups that are here, and if you have something you wanted to report, I want to give an opportunity to do that. So I do want to start with, let's see, give me one sec. Andre, are you here?
I'm here.
Do you have news for us? Okay.
Other than vaccination, getting our people vaccinated, our members. We've been doing that for about a month and a half, where they can schedule their appointments through us.
What about for you? Did things change with you or no?
No changes will be made at this time.
So you're going to still be with us, yes?
I'll be here, yeah.
Yes, that's an announcement. Yes. We are excited, Andre.
Thank you. I'm excited as well.
So you're reaching out to individual members about vaccinations? Are they aware?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what they can do, they can actually call us, and we'll take their information and pass it on to DOE. They'll get their appointment guaranteed.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. UFT, Lamar, you have any announcements?
Nothing at this time. I think everything's been all quiet on this end.
Good, perfect. Mary McDonald, any
No news is good news, I guess. I hope.
Okay. How about President's Council? Rashmi, you have any announcements?
No, wait. Okay. Oh, no, no announcements per se. Parents are just curious about two things. One is when will the students start going across the board for the elementary and for high schools? Is there a fixed date that has been communicated, or is it school specific and there is a range of date?
So we'll wait. Yeah. Louis, did you turn on because you wanted to say something to that?
Chancellor is making an announcement today.
Yeah.
Students can begin coming back on April 26th in all grade levels. We don't know what that means yet. If that means that they will start that day or if schools can stagger it in, but April 26th is the day.
So then the next question people will ask, isn't that the time frame for the ELA?
No, the ELA starts next week.
It's right in the middle.
It's that window.
It's the last week.
Yep.
It's the last week. Okay. And then the next questions that the parents are just asking around is, is there any specific guidance from the central in terms of physical activities for the kids in the middle of this pandemic? I know everybody is focused on academics, but what about reopening some kind of recreation for the kids who are actually going back to school?
So I would suggest that those parents speak to each individual school, because I mean, I've visited schools on PPOs and there's a lot of physical activity happening outdoors. And in our areas that have open air rooftop spaces. So it's not necessarily specific to a carved out plan from Central, but they have always from the beginning encouraged outdoor activities in either pods or, if you have larger spaces, multiple pods. And that has been happening for students who have been in school. So if it's not happening in an individual school, I would say that's something that you should do at the local level to engage in those conversations about what's possible. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. And also for everyone to know that the next President's Council meeting, which is on April 19th, is going to be the CEC forum. Remember, there has been a shift in elections where it used to be that the president and treasurer and secretary of each individual school's PTA voted for CEC members. Now that is going to be citywide, where you have every parent can vote, and actually they are currently voting at the PEP, I believe, next week or maybe the end of April. Within the next 2 weeks, they're voting at the PEP around expanding the vote to parents being able to vote for multiple times if they have multiple children. So that is going to be at the PEP in the next couple of weeks. But I think it's important for families to know that where they had not participated in CEC elections in the past, they now have the opportunity to vote. So if interested, they should attend the CEC forum, candidate forum, where all the candidates that are running will be presenting on that day. So.
And the registration for District 25's forum is now available. It wasn't online for a while, but now it is. So I just put the link in the chat. So you go ahead, you choose Queens, choose District 25, choose the language in which you want to participate in, and you can register for that event now.
Can I just say something? And so at the President's Council meeting on the 19th, it would be an opportunity for you to come and meet all the candidates that are running. I mean, all the parents to come and meet all the candidates that are running. They will have, I believe, a minute, some time to introduce themselves, and then they will be asked questions. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Where is Charlene? Are you here?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here laughing at Louis and his cat.
I
I'm being
know,
ass-
and
I'm
his
being- I'm
bright
being
yellow sweatshirt.
assaulted.
No,
my
your cat
God.
wants attention.
Ugh.
He or she said the meeting has gone on long
Hey.
enough.
I know. Charlene, you have any announcements in
Yes,
terms
I
of?
do.
Good.
Tonight is President's Council meeting. All are welcome, as always. 6:30 p.m. The link you should probably already have. I think you're on our mailing list. I'm not sure. But also next week, Monday night at 6:30, we're having our forum, our
Oh,
CCEC forum. So that information, I believe, is coming out this week.
let me
Not
check it
out
out.
already.
Maybe you're on there now.
It could be. I don't know.
It's considered citywide, right? Yeah, citywide high schools.
Yes.
The Queens Forum, Monday, April 19th.
Yep, good. It's already there. I'm so glad I don't have to do anything but show up and talk. This is great. I love how they organized it this year.
The same link that I put in the chat, you click on that one and you choose citywide and you'll see CCHS and you'll see all the high school forums. Great.
Good. All right, that's it.
Oh, there.
Basically, nothing else. And I only have 2 meetings left, and that's it, guys.
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Your son's not a senior.
Yes, he is.
Stop. When did that happen?
Charlene.
Is he on track to graduate?
Uh-huh.
Charlene.
Look, huh?
Oh.
No, my kid is doing what he always do. He waits till the last minute to do all his work. If he graduates, I'll be surprised. Whatever.
Are you able to adopt someone till you could stay?
Only if you pay for him. That's all I'm saying. Only if you pay.
Unbelievable.
And only if they clean. You know, I need a kid that likes to clean. You know.
Perfect.
So one that you don't have to remind to do it. Yeah, I need one of those. So if you got one of those, send them my way, please.
Not in my house, so I don't have one of those. Okay.
That's it.
So, Brooke and Esther, I didn't know if you wanted to update us. Esther, before you came on, we talked about how you in working with Brooke and
Taylor.
yes, Taylor, to ensure who's going to be the DLT rep. So as of now, Brooke has come to all the meetings, but if you guys can solidify that this week, just so we know, because it's actually a part of public documents and it can't just be whoever shows up. There has to be anyone can show up because this is a public meeting, but there has to be a consistent appointee to the position. So if you guys can settle on that. And then I don't know if you guys have any announcements for the.
No, right now, we're set to meet so we can, they're working on their bylaws. So for the bylaws of the DPAC, and then they're planning another meeting to talk to all PAC members of other schools so they see how they're doing on their bylaws.
Okay. And I know Joe is kind of in and out, but I didn't want to leave out high school UFT. So Joe, are you here? I think he had to sign out. I think he had a class.
He signed out already. He had a class.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So is there anyone else that wanted to say anything or add to new business? Okay. Well, I tried to keep it to 2 hours, and I think I did a good job today.
We did very good today.
Yes, and we still had a lot of information. So, Dr. D'Antona and I will be sending you the document that we shared. If you guys can look at some of that data and help think about ways to frame goals based on that data for the DLT starting next month. And as I said, we want to make sure that we have at least the idea of our targeted subgroups and the direction that we want to go, so we can share that with schools while they're engaging in the formation of their CEP goals for the 21-22 school year as well. So thank you, everyone. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
We don't do that, remember? But we just do it for fun.
All right,
we do it for fun.
All right, but can we collaboratively agree to end the meeting?
Yeah,
Thumbs
oh, I love how you worded that. That was very good.
Yes.
I like that.
Thumbs up, everyone.
Yes.
Are there any disagreements? Would we like to stay together at the meeting? Yes, yes. Okay, everyone have a great week. Our next meeting is, let me just get it out there if anyone has it before I get to it. I believe it is, no, it is Monday.
Is it the 10th?
I'm looking, hold on.
Yeah, Monday the
Yes,
10th.
it's the 10th. Wait.
Yeah, it's May 10th, Danielle.
May
It is,
10th.
it is listed as May 10th, yes. Okay. All right, so I will see all of you on May 10th.
Okay.
All right,
Have a
well,
great day, everyone.
I'll see all of you before, but, you know, all together as a collective, May 10th.
Yes.
Take
All right.
care, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.
Stay safe and well, everybody.
Have a great
Bye.
day, everyone.
Danielle, can I call you in about 10 minutes? Mister. All right.